Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this first of many webinars we've got planned for you today. We are grateful here at OSI to be supporting ITS as they develop this tool, TritonGPT, that we're all very excited about. And so today, this first one is about celebrating TritonGPT, and it's also about just sharing some tools and some terminologies, some things that will help you in a whole bunch of different areas in your use of AI. So that's the goals for today. Goals for today. We're going to give you a high-level introduction to AI. We're going to talk with ITS expert here, Brett Pollock. Thank you for joining us today, one of our panelists. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the tool, and we're going to look at some of the different features. We're going to showcase the tool itself. We're going to give you tips along the way about how you can apply it to your roles, and that's really particularly important and exciting for us. And we're going to give you examples throughout. So you should know. Sorry, go ahead.
Are we sharing the slide deck, Tony?
Sure. Give me 1 second. That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it?
This is our first time using the Zoom webinar, so AI has not solved everything yet.
Yeah, there you go. All right. I was able to validate that it was showing for the YouTube stream.
Oh, perfect.
Here we go.
Now it's showing for us. Okay.
All right. So thank you for that. Sorry. Thank you for spot checking that. So yeah, quick high-level intro, an approach to AI, and then showcasing the tool and giving tips along the way. Stephen, if you can take the next one.
Yeah, so just a quick bit of table setting before we really dive in. So we have about a 60-minute presentation, 60 minutes of content, and then what we want to do for the last 15 to 30 minutes is do a Q&A and do some live examples if you all want to ask us, suggest different prompts that we can use within the within TritonGPT. So as you can see, we're recording, we're live streaming. We will post this within the TritonGPT page on Blink. For those who are UCSD folks, you're quite familiar with Blink. Those who are not UCSD folks, this is probably the way you got the actual link to the webinar. It's going to be on that page. We have, supporting us, we have a bunch of different people from OSI and ITS kind of in the background, and they're actually here on hand to answer some of your questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A section within the webinar. Please don't message any hosts directly or put anything in like the normal webinar chat. We really want to manage the Q&A from that section. So any questions related to the content, any prompts that you want to see, we'd love to hear that. And then also the slides will be posted as well. Just a quick note, we're going to really be focusing this webinar on large language model AI. And also TritonGPT. So we may mention, other tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, but we really want to focus on TritonGPT here, as this is a UC San Diego webinar and it's a UC San Diego product.
All right. So a little bit of a thought exercise for everyone is how familiar are we with AI? Now, we got some notes in the chat that you can see both my browser window as well as our slide deck, and that's intentional because I want to do a little back and forth in just a moment. So if you think about AI, like there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of conversation, and one thing we want to do is provide a little bit of a baseline. So one thing that we want to do is explain what generative AI is. And Gen AI consists of two neural networks, often that compete with each other to generate realistic data. VAs use probabilistic approaches to learn compressed representations of the input data. Now this, I'm doing two things wrong. One, I'm just reading from the slides, right, of course. But two, this is maybe not the right level of definition that I need, right? So one thing that you can do is if you are leveraging an AI tool, is you can go over to the AI tool and you can say, please explain generative AI, right? And another thing you can do is to say, well, what's the intention? This will be for a non-technical audience, right? Great. So generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that can create new original content such as text, images, and even videos. How does it work? It uses a type of machine learning called deep learning, which involves training a computer model, et cetera, right? So this is the kind of thing that you can do, is if you have a set of information, you can ask for that to be represented in a different way. And then once it's done sort of giving it response, I'll show you one other thing is, let's say you have this and it's really, really long and verbose. You might say something like, make this more concise, only like 3 sentences. for example. So let's see what it can do. Great. So generative AI, it's a type of artificial intelligence to create new original content. This is achieved through deep learning algorithms and learning patterns. So these are the kinds of things that you can do, is that as you're looking for information or as you're creating something new, you can leverage these tools to get more information and to maybe even start to massage and work on that information that you have access to, right? So AI, to put differently, AI is a whole bunch of different things, and it's really just about using mathematics and logic to look at a data set and to try to give us some kind of output, right? So if you think about the algorithms on, let's say, your search engine that sort of promote different results, or if you think about the sensors on your car that tell you if someone's in your blind spot, that's really just taking a set of input, applying some math or some logic to it to give you some other signal or some sort of output. That's a form of artificial intelligence, right? And part of the reason that these language models, things like ChatGPT or TritonGPT, have gotten really a lot of notoriety lately, is because they're doing something that's relatively new in the world of AI, and that's you can give it a sentence, and it will give you sentences back, right? And that's something that's relatively new, is being able to use language to be able to, in a sense, speak to the tool or communicate with it, and that it would provide us something in return. You don't have to necessarily know coding or special rules or like being able to put just keywords with pluses and minuses. You could just give it a sentence, sort of what you're looking for, and it would give you in sentences something back. Brett, I would love to hear more about TritonGPT specifically.
Yeah, so thanks, Tony. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you all about Triton GPT, maybe for those that don't know the history. So, back in 2022, late 2022, whenever ChatGPT came about, OpenAI launched that. It kind of took the world by storm. And so, what we started doing when we were creating kind of our acceptable use of commercial services, once folks kind of came to us and said, "Hey, what can I put into these tools? What's appropriate?" When it comes to working in our day-to-day jobs. Can I put UCSD information into some of these tools and use them, because I'm finding that they're making me more efficient. And for some of the use cases that folks were talking about in the chat, folks really wanted to take advantage of the tools. And so because we had no contractual agreements with any of the vendors at the time, we started looking at what we might be able to do internally and developing something UCSD specific. At the same time, we kind of created this community of practice of some of our IT practitioners and ITS that were kind of experimenting on nights and weekends in looking at generative AI services, some of the platforms, the orchestration platforms that were being made available open source. And actually, one of our service desk student staff had downloaded a framework called Dancer. It's DANSWER. And he was able to link it into our knowledge base that we had in Atlassian Confluence for service desk agents specifically. And he was able to retrieve results out of that knowledge base just by prompting it with questions and it providing a natural language response based on the context that was in our Confluence knowledge base. And so really what that did was allowed us to really understand that, hey, there are open source platforms out there that we could run ourselves. And if we could look at scaling something like this, we could make generative AI broadly available to, employees and potentially students at some point without having to incur any kind of licensing fees and things like that with third-party vendors. As OpenAI was starting to develop ChatGPT Enterprise, we saw, $30 per user per month and these kinds of things. Obviously, that would not scale here at UCSD if we wanted to deploy it broadly. So, kind of fast forward then to 2023, we basically presented to the chancellor and the cabinet on how we might be able to deploy this more broadly using this orchestration platform. It so happened that the founders of Dancer were UCSD alumni. And so we kind of put everything together and got some seed funding to be able to not only purchase the enterprise license for Dancer and work to develop with them the interface that you're seeing here today, but also some seed funding for some hardware so that we could deploy it broadly across the campus. So, we are constantly improving Triton GPT. One of the things I was talking with Tony about as we were kind of coming on is that, we're testing the new large language model from Meta, which we're using to kind of power TritonGPT on the back end, the new 405B parameter version. And early signs pointing is that we're seeing even better results than we have today. Because we're vastly improving the front end and the features that you see in TritonGPT, we're also improving the back end. So I would just encourage everyone as you're using it, and if it doesn't meet your needs, definitely give us feedback within the flow, but then also realize too that it's constantly improving. And so don't discount it if it doesn't give you the exact results that you're kind of looking for today. Just realize and know that we're consistently moving it in a more positive direction. And we're adding more assistance and new functionality all the time. So that brings us to where we are today, Tony.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Mr. Stephen will take us through some use cases.
Thank you, Tony. So right now in kind of our state of AI, the world state of AI, there's really two entry point uses that anyone can kind of go on and use. The first one is content generation. So an example of this would be like, generate a poem for my dog Ozzy, telling him how much I love him, creating something new out of nothing. And then the other one is information seeking. So trying to find the answer to a question like, who was the president of the United States in 1977? The big point here is when you are using some of these tools and you try to generate content, you're going to be pretty happy with the results, because if I'm trying to create a love poem for my dog, anything really close to resembling a love poem will be pretty nice for me. However, when I'm information seeking, there's only one answer to my question in most cases. So I'm gonna be really scrutinizing the results a lot more. So your experiences when you're generating content versus when you're information seeking are going to be different. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when you are using tools such as TritonGPT, you can kind of think of your experience with the tool as kind of shaping clay. So you start out with this kind of small lump of clay and you want to make a statue, and you tell TritonGPT, hey, I want to make a statue. Or the equivalent would be putting in a prompt. And your first response is going to be something like this. It kind of looks like a statue, but it's not really, not really exactly what we're looking for. Probably not what you had in mind when you first created the prompt. The key here is to keep going, to provide feedback and provide more direction for TritonGPT or any other AI model, telling it what you want, and slowly through repetition. And constantly giving feedback and getting another response back from the AI model, you're going to get eventually to what you're looking for, which is this nice, amazing clay statue.
Right. Well, even if it's not, continuing on prompts within the thread, it's taking that first prompt and saying, I'm going to refine it. So if you're saying, generate me an email, you could take it and within the tool, give it additional refinement, or you can export it and say, okay, now I'm going to make sure that the dates and the links and those extra details are there as well. So I want us all to think about how we currently find information. So when we're looking for something that's factual, maybe we go to something like, Chrome, Google, and do a search. So we might say, who is Stephen Savini? One of my co-hosts. Stephen, do you work at Walmart Business or Lowe's Companies?
I do not.
Right.
I work at UCSD.
Burry Scaffolding, or do you have an Instagram? Oh, there's your obituary. I'm sorry to hear that. So we know when we're doing a search in search engines, right? Our next favorite thing, the thing that we've become reliant on for so long, that the first responses are not going to be the perfect thing, that we need to either give it additional context or keep searching or go to the actual web page and make sure that's what we're looking for. And a lot of the behavior is going to be the same, right, with these tools. But for context, if I were to go to something like a ChatGPT and I were to ask a ChatGPT, for example, who is Stephen Savini, it's going to do the same thing. It's basically looking for all the information that Google has access to. And it says, oh, hey, presenter at NCCI conference. I think you went to NCCI, but you didn't present. Did you more recently? Yeah, okay, well, you're a member of NCCI. That's something, that's at least close, right? But it's still, it's taking the information, the same sort of set of information that a search engine would be using, and it's trying to give you a response using that set of information. So for the same reason, you need to scrutinize a little bit, you need to dig in a little bit more. So this is one of the reasons why the folks at ITS looked at this situation and was like, hey, there's an opportunity here. This was really one of the reasons I think that TritonGPT is going to be super useful for folks, is because we're able to say, focus on things that happen at UC San Diego, our Blink pages, our resources, our KBAs, the different things that we rely on. And when you generate a response, focus on those things, because if we ask a question, we wanted to have that context, right? That's really the world that we're living in when we're using this tool. Additionally, there's data security. So this is we'll hear a little bit more about data security, but when you're sending a prompt to something like ChatGPT, you're essentially sending that information out for someone else to hold on to or do something with. So this allows us to do something to do these prompts entirely within our own sort of closed environment. And it creates an opportunity for what's called assistance, which we're going to show you in a bit. But these over time will become more maybe specialized in terms of the different roles that we have. So if you're in registrar, there might be a registrar assistant, because sometimes if you say a certain term or keyword or acronym in one part of the university might mean something different than it means in another context in a different part of the university. So it allows us to sort of specialize the way that we use the tool as well. So these are some exciting opportunities, some of the reasons why, if you have access to ChatGPT or other tools, we're going to strongly encourage you to think about TritonGPT as one of the resources that you'll go to soon. And for context, again, as an example, if I were to go to, say, what is OSI, right? Operational Strategic Initiatives, it's the office that I work for. And I go to Google, it might say Open Systems Intercommunication. And similarly, if I went to a ChatGPT, it would give me something similar, Open Systems Interconnection, something similar, but not exactly the same. Whereas if I search on our internal sites, something like Blink, OSI is one of the top responses. And now TritonGPT would take that same context and say, it's the Office of Operational Strategic Initiatives. And another thing that you'll see here is that it actually gives a little reference, a little call out. So you're able to say, here's the result that AI generated, but here's the context documents that we're using to generate that response. And it allows us a jumping point to go and learn more on the actual source of truth space. Some places where you might have seen AI already sort of in the processes that you encounter, customer support, right? If I go to my insurance portal and I'm asking for, I need to file a claim or something, a lot of the times there's a little chat window. And the majority of the time, at least in my experience, those chat windows are not people monitored, right? They're looking for different keywords and they're generating response based on those. So sometimes that's one thing that we might see. You can use it for research. If you're, let's say, going to do a presentation on something, or you're going to start an actual research topic in some new exciting field, you can actually go into these tools and start ideating, if you will, asking questions like what's out there, what resources are available, what are people talking about, things like that. You could use it for content creation. So we've seen a lot of examples where people say, I need to write an email and I want to make sure that the tone is properly worded. I'm writing to a leader and I want to make sure that it's professional but still friendly. And sometimes we just need sort of a writing buddy. So this is one way that AI can help us. And of course, in synthesis. So one thing that we hear a lot of excitement about is being able to synthesize meeting notes. You take a whole lot of meeting notes and can you compress those down into action items? And can you then take those action items and turn those into email reminders for those people to do the action items? So there's a lot of exciting things that you can do here in terms of synthesizing and transforming information that you have as well. Some things to think about with AI. There are, of course, inaccuracies and hallucinations. If it's pulling from a data set, we want to make sure that that data set is accurate. So if we have competing web pages and 5 different web pages on the same topic, and some of them are outdated and old, it's going to be pulling from those. So it would be better of us to go through and make sure our resource pages are updated. And that, again, in TritonGPT allows us to do that because we know now where those documents are coming from, and we can sort of prioritize or give extra weight, if you will, to certain resources as the source of truth. Bias, if there's bias in the data, it's going to be reflected in the outcome, right? That's true no matter what tool or resource you're looking at. If you're looking at Excel sheets and there's a signal in there and you don't account for it. And so again, this TritonGPT allows us to know where the information is coming from, to spot check those responses, to put certain tests and controls on those. We'll hear more about those in a bit, as well as in the session we're going to have in December. Privacy and security, as I mentioned, having this on premises ensures that we know who has access to what bits of information. Unethical use and IP violation. Now, these are things that as users, we need to be more careful about. We want to make sure that we're not, One of the examples I like to give is, if I say make 10 songs in the style of Taylor Swift that are about Steven Savini and how awesome he is. If we were to do that, and I were to try to go and publish those then on YouTube or something as my own work, that might be unethical use and IP violation. I might find myself in a courtroom, arguing with Taylor Swift, which might not be a bad idea. Might be a good way to meet Taylor Swift. So, but these are things that you need to think about. And there's guidelines that are being worked on right now. There are guidelines that are available, of course, and we'll make all of those are available on our TritonGPT page, as well as in additional resources that we'll share with you as we go along. Brett, and you're muted, sir.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so the other thing too, just to call attention to, and I know, a lot of the conversation just is around Triton GPT, and we really want to, kind of tout that as our preferred solution. As Tony mentioned, it's developed purpose-built for UC San Diego. The assistants within Triton GPT are UCSD specific. It has the UCSD context just with regards to what it's indexing in terms of our Blink pages and knowledge base articles and the websites that we're kind of pulling in to give answers to questions. But I will say too, we do evaluate AI solutions that are part of our supported vendor platforms. And so recently we looked at our contract underneath Zoom AI Companion, which is something that's supported in the Zoom space to do transcription, AI taking meeting notes, things like that, based on folks being in a Zoom meeting, and it providing kind of an AI summary of what was discussed within that particular meeting. It's super helpful, and we've recently made it available, working closely with Pega Parsi and our campus privacy office about using it in an acceptable way, both for administrative, educational, and instructional purposes. And so that is available for folks now to turn on. So there is instructions on Blink. If you search on Zoom AI Companion, you'll see instructions on how to enable it for your particular Zoom account. We have also looked at some of the Microsoft AI products that are part of the Microsoft 365 workspace. So we've recently made available Microsoft Copilot 365. That is an additional charge. So if you wanted to enable that within your Microsoft ecosystem, it is an additional charge, and we will handle that through a recharge basis. And if you search on Blink for Microsoft Copilot 365, you'll see more information about how to make that purchase. And then finally, we are offering Microsoft Copilot with data protection. And so that's just at copilot.microsoft.com. It basically is just another generative AI solution that is supported. It doesn't have the UCSD context, so it would be a substitute for what you might use, ChatGPT for. It has some limited features. It does also allow you to search the internet, but it does provide kind of natural language responses. And some of the use cases that you saw with regards to, summarization, document summarization, it does have that ability as well. But again, nothing really outside of what we use for Triton GPT in terms of functionality, but it's an alternate solution for folks. So we're continuing to evaluate our platforms, and if our contracts have it in terms of the terms and conditions baked into that contractual arrangement that we have either through a UCOP agreement or UCSD agreement, we'll definitely consider making those available with considering a privacy and security review of each of those features. So with that, I'll turn it back to Tony.
Awesome. And this actually is a good opportunity to tease out for folks. So this webinar is celebrating AI in general and TritonGPT. We're going to have subsequent webinars, and if you see the little asterisk up here, more on this under the hood webinar. So that's one we're planning for tentatively December, maybe January. In that one, we intend to go through talk a little bit about the Dancer environment, talk about a little bit about the integrations with the Llama environment. I know I'm probably misstating this, but to hand it over to our IT allies to tell us more about the actual structures and the development of the tool. So if that's the kind of things you're interested in, how do algorithms work, and how do these connections work, and to learn more about those bits, know that we're going to be talking about that one in that session. All right, and then also wanted to call out here, so there's also support structures that are at UC San Diego. And one of those is the AI and admin work group. So again, this is a group of leaders that are getting together and that are discussing the different kinds of ideas that are sort of coming up, the different use cases and scenarios that might be that might be appropriate across campus settings. Again, more about this, but we really just wanted to call this out to let everyone know that there are support structures that are looking at this at an institutional level and at a department sort of space, and trying to really find ways for us to make the most of these tools. Right now, we're at the stage as an institution where we're all really just sort of becoming aware of the tools, becoming aware of how to use them. And so that's part of the reason why this initial webinar is focusing on use cases and getting comfortable with the actual interface of the tools. So with this, I'm excited to have Stephen Sweeney tell us a little bit about TritonGPT, and I'll be showing the assistants over here on the right. Stephen?
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about TritonGPT. Nice AI-generated fireworks there. Thank you, Tony. So within TritonGPT, there are 4 different assistants, and the way we talk about these are you have 4 very smart friends who all know very different things. The first one is the UC San Diego assistant. And this is essentially getting answers to questions that you all have about UC San Diego. So a good example of a question asked here would be something like, where can I buy a parking permit? And so if I just search that, if I just put that into Google, maybe Google knows my location and it's going to think, hey, we're going to show results for the city of San Diego. But since I'm asking it into TritonGPT, it has that UCSD context. And so it's going to hopefully reference things from transportation's website, and it actually does. You can buy a parking permit at Parking and Transportation Services, which is great. Then the next one is the general AI assistant, and so this is essentially kind of our version of ChatGPT, and this is something you would use for common knowledge. So the question I always say is, who was president of the United States in 1977? UC San Diego probably doesn't have any, web pages or any, any news articles, about this topic, hopefully. But because we're using the general AI assistant, it's actually going back into kind of all of the internet pages and all of the books and things that the AI model was trained on. The next one is JD Helper. So JD stands for job description. So for those who are hiring people, this can save you quite a bit of time when trying to write job descriptions, which I know is a tedious and boring process. JD Helper is trained on, I believe, over 1,500 job descriptions in the job description database at UC San Diego. So the answer that you'll get is something really similar to job descriptions that have been used in the past. Are we going to do this one, Tony, or are we going to do this one a little bit later?
Fund Manager?
Yeah, we'll go to Fund Manager. Thank you. And then the last one that I'm excited about, because I have a finance background here at UC San Diego, is Fund Manager Coach. And this is the latest AI assistant that was released about a month ago. So Fund Manager Coach is trained on KBAs and Blink pages, as well as a couple of Oracle trainings related to finance at UC San Diego. So it is called Fund Manager Coach, and it is primarily used as a resource for fund managers to get their questions answered. But I know fund managers have a lot of administrative assistants and research assistants that support them. So this tool is for them as well. So again, Blink and KBAs related to finance, research, travel and expense, and procurement at UC San Diego, among other things.
All right, so one other thing we wanted to call out here was the search function. So up here at the top, this little toggle, the default setting is going to be the chat. So the sort of ChatGPT, TritonGPT sort of environment where you put in a prompt and it gives you a response. If you wanted to toggle over to the search environment, I just wanted to show you a little bit of how it's different. So you would enter in whatever your question is, and then there's 2 settings here. There's AI and then there's classic. Now they're both going to give you, and the reason I put the screenshot side by side is because I wanted to show kind of the differences here in one shot. If you were to put the same question in, it's going to give you an AI response. It's going to give you a top level initial response. Now, I don't know if you can follow on to that chat in the same way that you could in the chat version, but the other call out here is that when you have it toggled over to classic, it's going to show you the keywords that it found as it was doing that search. Whereas if you have it toggled over to AI, it's going to summarize the page that it used during that search. So you can see here, it just gives you the straight text, career development, career center, resources available. Whereas in the AI version, it says this document provides information on career planning and resources. So if you if you choose to, if you'd like to, just know that this is an option for you as well. If you are more familiar, or you just want to try out the search functionality and sort of get initial responses, then this is one great way to do that. You still get the AI answer, you still get the sort of compressed answer based on the resources that it's finding, but you can toggle between, no, and, the power of and you can toggle between classic and AI. Again, classic will show you sort of the classic, almost Google search kinds of responses where it's giving you the keywords, and the AI toggle will tell you sort of a summary of what it found on that page. And this helps you to go through and look at those additional resources. Anyone else want to say anything on that, or shall we keep on keeping on?
I say keep on keeping on, Tony.
All right, let's do it. So now it's time. I want everyone to think a little bit about what are some processes you support? Because as you're thinking about AI, hopefully you're starting to think about what are some things that you can leverage in your day-to-day. Now, one thing that I want you to think about, and one way that it helps narrow things down, is to think about which of the things that you're doing in particular involve language. And then what are you doing with that language? So an example would be I'm writing an email. So I'm generating language, right? If I am editing a website, right? You are transforming language to edit the tone. If I am looking at a policy and then trying to build a form based on that policy. This is actually a use case that somebody sent me that I was like, that's awesome. They received a policy document and they realized they were going to need to make a form out of it because of what was required in the policy. And they said, they dropped the policy language into the tool and said, based on this as a policy, please let me know like what some potential fields might be for a form to create a workflow, which was really, really cool. So as you're thinking about where can we apply this to our processes, I really want you to think about, it helps to think about what are the things that we're doing in our day-to-day that involve language in particular, and then narrowing it down to say, now what are we doing with that language? We're rewriting it. So another good example would be is if we have a whole set of notes that we take during a meeting, we want to compress that down into just action items. Or if it was in bulleted format and I wanted to turn it into a paragraph format in 3 paragraphs as an executive summary. If I took notes during a meeting and I want to turn that into a project charter, these are examples of things that you can do, just thinking about these as steps in a process and what you're doing with the text that you have access to, right? And that's, of course, generation. It's different when you're thinking about information gathering. So if I'm doing a process and I'm searching online for what are the steps involved in completing this request, that's involving language as well, right? I'm using text to search for another text document or a video. So even that in itself, hopefully will save us some time and effort in terms of finding the appropriate resource for different things. So maybe this is too conceptual. I want to give an opportunity to actually see it, but let's use an actual use case. So Mr. Steven Savini, if you could do me a favor and play the role of a person who is going to hire somebody new, right? So if you're hiring somebody new, maybe these are some things that you're doing. You're writing a job description for the post. You're posting on maybe LinkedIn or social media to try to generate some interest. You're looking for, you're maybe going to generate some questions for the interviews, and you might need to know some things with regards to funding for the role or other things that might be, I'm trying to think of something for financial, for the fund manager coach, right? So Stephen, if you were going to write a job description, what would you normally do? Like, let's say you didn't have an AI tool, what were the normal sort of steps involved in writing a job description?
I mean, if I was starting, I'd try to go find something that either I'd done before or maybe some of my colleagues had done before. Assuming that that's not really available, I would probably, maybe go look at some job cards within the same role, and then try to write something from there from scratch.
Awesome. And then how long do you think, if you give me an estimate of how much time that would take you to do, what would you say?
I'd say probably maybe 30 to 35 minutes.
Okay. So what if I told you, what if I told you that there was a tool called TritonGPT, and what they did was they took a bunch of different job descriptions and did exactly that. They said, we're going to take the ones that are relevant, we're going to compare them. So I'm going to go in here. Tell me what's the role that you're looking to hire for?
So I'm actually looking to hire a business systems analyst too.
Business systems analyst 2. All right. Great. What are some relevant details for this position? So like what it's going to do is it's going to sort of blend in the special needs. Like, is this PowerPoint? Do they need to, work weekends? What are some things that you might want to add into the sort of framework of a job description?
So this person will need to be really good at kind of communicating between different people, different, talking to different audiences.
Okay.
They, hopefully they have some Lean Six Sigma experience, maybe green belt. And then definitely project management because they're going to be working on technology improvement projects.
All right. So here we go. So applies business process concepts, Lean Six Sigma methodology, ideally green belt certified, and project management principles to resolve business problems. Awesome. Let's say for the moment that we forgot to ask for bilingual, right? So please incorporate bilingual preferred and PowerPoint skills. Looks like we forgot to add that.
While we
Go
wait,
ahead.
I've just been told someone teams me and said it takes way longer than 30 to 35 minutes. I'm
Okay.
obviously a terrible actor.
Let's see here. I had to refresh my page because I got a little, it paused on me for a second. Okay, so it's good to know that it takes more than that, but hopefully whoever put that in the chat sees the benefit of something like this, right? Because you can see here, it gave us the framework and it incorporated what we needed. So, and it added in here, effectively communicate to stakeholders through concise reports, presentations, and dashboards. Now, again, this is something that, Stephen, you would take this and say, well, maybe they're not actually going to do dashboards, right? You'd want to go through, and that's the analogy of sort of sharpening the statue that TritonGPT is going to give you, right? You can take these initial prompts, you can give it a little bit more definition, but it still is going to require some time. Now, what about posting on hiring sites? What would you do for that? What are some of the steps involved?
So, I mean, I would take something like this, or, if I didn't have an AI tool, then, whatever I wrote by hand, and I'd obviously, I couldn't keep the UCSD specific material. So I'd have to take all that out and kind of replace it with more generic terms. I'd probably try to make it a little bit more, catchy and interesting to try to, to get people's attention as well.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna, and approximately how long would it take? Are you a good LinkedIn post writer?
No, I am not. So, I mean, this also would probably take me maybe 40, 45 minutes, especially if I'm posting on multiple sites as well.
Okay, so I'm gonna say create a post for LinkedIn to announce this job, right? And I'm just gonna paste, I'm literally just pasting the job description that we just created. Let's see, we're hiring team, let's see here, as a business process analyst. Now, I don't know about you, but this is kind of long. Like if I saw something like this on LinkedIn, I'd be like, that's way too much. Like this is maybe like if somebody emailed me and was like, tell me more about the role, I'd probably send them more about this, right? So this is an example where I might follow up on this and say, make it more concise, max of, 2 paragraphs, right?
Yeah, I can't be bothered to read that much, honestly.
Yeah, but you can also do things like, let's say, I don't know, let's say for whatever reason, your team is working on something that has to do with Minecraft. I'm just going to pick an example, right? Something that we undoubtedly will see if we were to incorporate in here. So if I were to say incorporate themes of Minecraft, because we know that if we hire somebody that knows of Minecraft, that they'll be a better fit with our team culturally or something like that, right? So let's see. Building a better business. Join us as a business system. We're on a mission to craft a more efficient business. As a business analyst, you'll be our master builder, right? So maybe there's some little themes in there, but you can see how it maybe makes it more fun. It reaches out to maybe a different audience, that sort of thing. So cool. What about looking up policies for interview questions? What would you normally do for that, and about how long would it take?
I mean, I don't even know where on Blink those reside. So it would just be like a very long series of Google search, or sorry, not Google search, maybe Google searches and also Blink searches until I found what I was looking for.
All right. So for this one, I am gonna.
Sorry, I also would want to add, like, I would also, have to look at the policy and then kind of, interpret it myself and use a lot of mental energy to make sure that the questions that I wanted to ask were also, okay by policy.
Awesome. So let me say, for this one, I'm going to toggle over to the UC San Diego assistant, because as I'm asking about policy questions, this is something that I'm not going to want just broad conceptual policy. I want to know what happens at UC San Diego. So like, what policies should I consider when creating job interview questions? All right. Now, one thing that we maybe didn't put fine enough a point on this is that when you're using specifically, well, most of these assistants, but specifically the ones that have the San Diego context, it's going to give you these call outs. So it gives you the response. When creating questions, you consider XYZ, but you can actually click on the different resources here at the bottom, and it'll take you to the reference point, that it actually used to create the resource, which is, I think, super awesome. So, this sort of is a way to say, here's an AI response, but make sure you go and check the thing. We could even go from here and say, write questions, questions for this role. And again, just pasting the job description that we grabbed earlier. Let's see how it does. Here are some potential questions. Can you describe a time when you applied Lean Six Sigma? And we incorporated Lean Six Sigma into our job description, right? How do you currently develop methodologies? How do you communicate complex processes? So this is, again, just another example of, it's not going to do all of it for you. You still want to take these and make sure that they sort of get at the kinds of things you're looking for, that they're aligned with policy, all those sorts of things, but it hopefully helps you in generating some of these. And what about, what kinds of questions could we ask that have to do with funding or financial management sort of questions that I can toggle over to the fund manager coach for?
If I can go back just 1 second, Tony.
Oh,
this is also a great moment to talk about a new feature also that was released about a month ago, file upload. So you could even do a version of this where if you have questions already that you've used before, you could upload that as a Word document as long as it's not too long, and say something like, hey, interpret these based off of the policy for, interview questions. I actually don't know what the policy is called, but
sure.
You could upload the file and you could say something like, interpret these questions and let me know if these are okay to ask per, HR policy. And it would, do a really detailed analysis. It would do a really detailed analysis of the Word document on each question and let you know, hey, here's some ways that you could improve it.
Awesome.
We haven't talked a lot about file upload yet, but that's a really great use case.
Yep.
To answer your actual question, let's switch gears a bit and let's pretend that we've just hired a fund manager. And we could say something like, I'm hiring a new fund manager. Can you, create an outline of maybe a ramp up plan that includes, some materials that they should read and be familiar with. And while Tony types that, because we're using Fund Manager Coach, the materials and the training plan that it's going to be based off of are all of the actual resource pages that are within Blink and KBAs. Review the Fund Manager Coach beta resource page. That's a great place to start. The services and support portal, take a lot of trainings. And honestly, this is actually like a really great outline with kind of different steps. And, not only is it just giving you like a bulleted list, it's actually showing like, hey, you should do all of these different things. And, if you're not doing financial reporting and analysis, you could tell the AI to, get rid of this, or you could just, skip it. The best part of this too is if you want to just, really quickly, my favorite kind of transforming of a prompt is, hey, turn this into an email to my new fund manager colleague, Tony, and it would generate something for you if we want to try that. I know that, a big thing here is there's so much information, especially for fund managers, and this is a really great central place, to get people started.
All right, super cool. So as it's generating the response, our estimates, at least on this for process times, 60 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And as we saw, we're still going to need to do some thinking on what the prompt is going to look like. We're going to need to do some sort of following up on the cues or doing that extra sharpening of our outcomes, right? So it's not doing it all for us, but it's definitely going to save us some time. So a lot of the times when we think about AI, we're thinking about how is it going to help us do things faster, which, it's definitely going to help in a lot of ways with that. But this idea of how can we use it to be more efficient, right? So sometimes we think of efficiency, we think of speed, and that's fair to say. Efficiency has to do sometimes with speed, but not always, right? So one really important thing I hope everyone will take away from this is, if you were to rethink efficiency and relabel that as what are the outcomes that you're aiming for the people that you're doing this work for, whatever the process is that you're supporting, what are your true goals of the benefits of your work? And maybe maybe it looks something like this. Maybe you're hoping to be more relatable, more accessible, more creative, more aligned, more considerate. These are quality metrics that go beyond just the can we do it faster, right? Because yes, it'll help us do things faster in a lot of ways. But as we saw earlier with the Minecraft example, right? That's one way to be a little bit more creative, a little more friendly. If I wanted to put that post onto LinkedIn and bilingual was really something that I thought was important for the post, why wouldn't I create a version of that post that was in another language, right? So I can take AI and transform it into that language. And now I'm getting better outcomes of the candidate pool, but I'm also being more accessible and more equitable with the information. So I really hope that folks transcend this sort of idea that AI is just going to help us be faster. This really has the potential to help us reach better quality outcomes. And looking back at the example that we had a moment ago of hiring process, yes, it has speed benefits, but in terms of writing a job description, we can make sure we're more aligned with policy, we're more consistent, uniform in our outcomes. In terms of posting, we can get a better applicant pool if we're focusing on the tone. In terms of the policy interviews, we can make sure that we're within compliance and we're not, going to find ourselves in a lawsuit later or something like that. And in terms of funding and those sorts of questions, we can reduce errors, we can start to streamline our approach. Again, these are things that are quality outcomes that sometimes when we focus too much on speed as the thing, we maybe don't see this as a potential benefit, but it truly, truly is. Which takes me to prompt engineering. So when we're thinking about what are the outcomes we're hoping to get, I don't like this idea of calling it prompt engineering because even in that, I want people to understand that you don't need to be an engineer or a scientist or know a bunch of rules and frameworks to necessarily be good at this. So prompt engineering, you hear that around, and I don't love it. We've talked to some of our IT allies here as well, and we're similar in a lot of ways to say maybe prompt engineering is too rigid, but it's really maybe prompting. I mean, you put information into the little prompt box and you're nudging it for a kind of response. Okay, I mean, that's an okay way to get there. But I really maybe want you to think about it as you're communicating. What are the skills that you use when you communicate? So if I were to go to, let's say, something like a Google search engine, that is almost engineering. I need to know the keywords and I need to put them in a specific order, maybe put certain things in quotation marks or in parentheticals. Like there are rules there that will help you get a better response. But when we're communicating with people, I need to give them a little bit of context. I need to say, Stephen, I'm hiring a new person and I want to create a job description. Can you help me write a job description? Stephen, I want to take that job description and turn it into a LinkedIn post. I want to make sure the post is 2 sentences or 3 sentences, and I want to make sure there's a call to action. And I don't know how to use hashtags and stuff, but if you do, please incorporate those, right? Those are things that if I just went to Stephen and said, Stephen, job description, he'd be like, what about it, right? So think about how you communicate. It's a soft skill. And using that same set of soft skills are going to help you in what feels like a hard skill, which is interacting with these AI tools, a lot of them. Okay. And this is TritonGPT, ChatGPT, really most of the tools that I've encountered, it's the same, right? They're really trying to find a way to allow us to just use language to get the most out of the outcomes. This is an acronym that you're welcome to use if it helps you. Situation, task, action, references, and tone. That's when you start your prompt, right? So you give it a situation. I'm a new staff member. What's the task that you need help with? I need to write an email. Great. What do you want out of that action? Well, hopefully no more than 2 paragraphs. References. Do you have text or a policy that you want to include, either uploading a file or adding additional resources? And then tone, right? How do you want it to come out? Now, this is all stuff you can think about when you first enter your prompt, or you can just give it an initial first shot and then add these things afterwards. Oh, I forgot to mention that the tone should be more upbeat or the tone should be exciting. Oh, I forgot to incorporate this extra text, right? That sort of thing. So those are things that you can add on afterwards if you choose to. But if you start with this in mind, you'll be off to a better initial prompt. And of course, if you continue your prompt, so if you get that initial response and you say, maybe you expand on that or you direct it more or less in a particular direction, or you investigate a little bit. If you were to get a response of here's 5 different policies, you might be able to say, tell me more about the 3rd bullet, or tell me more about this specific policy that you mentioned, right? So these are things that you can do things that you can think about as you continue on in the chat, right? The first initial question or prompt that you put in there doesn't need to be the end. It can be conversational, and you can continue on and further refine. And this is, again, coming back to the statue analogy that we had earlier. Stephen, what happens if we didn't get sort of the exact thing that we were looking for, or if it gives us something weird? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple of kind of, instant troubleshooting things or correctional actions you can take. First of all, make sure you're in the right assistant. So if you're asking a UCSD specific question, but you're using the general AI assistant, you're not going to get the response you're looking for. So just double check down below underneath the prompting box, and Tony's going to indicate it hopefully that you're using the right assistant. Leverage some of the guidance that we've talked through today, and Tony's going to talk through in a little bit with his trainings. And then just like with any other technology, what's it called? Step one of troubleshooting is to turn it off and turn it back on again. And the equivalent here is to actually just start a new chat, try a different sentence structure, maybe try phrasing the question just a little bit. Yes, the little pencil icon will create a new chat. And if you tried all those and you're still not getting the answer you're looking for, there are thumbs up and thumbs down buttons on every prompt on every answer that Tony is about to show us. So this basically sends feedback directly to ITS and can show us, hey, this question wasn't really answered that correctly, or this generated content wasn't up to my standards. If you are using the thumbs down button and you're trying to get like a specific answer, and hey, like this answer is in this Blink page, but for some reason TritonGPT isn't giving me the answer. Please include that in the feedback, and that's really helpful for us to go ahead and look and say, hey, is there some sort of error with the program? And that'll help us do a little bit more investigation. Tony has a great example right here.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Of course. So, what can you all do kind of going on from today? And, what's kind of the call to action from all of this? First of all, if you are a content creator, I call them content creators now. If you're a content owner, you write content, training pages for, other employees. Make sure those pages are up to date, and also create, they explain everything explicitly. So for example, there might be different ways to call the teeny card or a card product. Make sure all of those different ways are reflected in the content that you create, so that an AI model is able to actually help people when they ask about those certain products. Submit ideas or requests. We have an idea wave of different prompt examples that Tony's about to look up right now. Additionally, if you have someone who's a member of the AI and admin work group, you can reach out to them if you have an idea of how another maybe assistant for TritonGPT or another way we can leverage AI at UCSD. Share your use cases, not just with this group, not just on the idea wave, but also within your teams. Talk through, hey, I used TritonGPT, I used the Fund Manager Coach Assistant to draft an email to my PI telling them what receipts they needed to keep when they travel, and that worked really well for me. So share your experiences with each other, talk about the wins, and also maybe work through if you're trying to figure out the best way to prompt or the best way to get answers like what we're getting here. Talk through that with each other and help each other out. And then also provide feedback, as we talked through before. The thumbs up button and the thumbs down button. Every once in a while, we're sending out surveys to get a finger on the pulse of how AI is developing in the administration of UCSD. So if you see us send out a survey and you have a few minutes, it would be really helpful for us if you filled that out. And then the next part is build intentionality, and the picture we have here is someone going on a hike, and my kind of model for all this is everyone's on their own AI journey, essentially. AI it's a technology that's going to revolutionize the way that we work and the way that we do things. And so it's going to be a change that not just folks at UCSD are going to go through with TritonGPT, but everyone's going to go through it. They're going to have to, for me, I compare it to what, I'm too young to know what life was like when the internet was introduced, but I assume it's going to be something, similar to that, or like cell phones. It's going to be, really scary, and you're going to have to learn a few new things, but in the end, it's going to be, beneficial for everyone. So if you have the TritonGPT virtual background, which I believe we can put into the chat, this lovely background here, feel free to put that on in your Zoom call, so that if you're talking, hey, like, we have this question, or we want to generate this thing, and if someone's looking at your background, and they can say, hey, like, let's try using TritonGPT for this, just to find those times when it makes sense to actually to use TritonGPT to help solve a problem, or to make things a lot easier. Schedule time. So, maybe, talk about TritonGPT within your team meetings, maybe schedule, 30 minutes a month to talk about your use of TritonGPT, or again, share some success stories. And then also process mapping. So within your processes, if there's opportunities to find efficiencies using AI, it's great if we're able to actually add that into our processes, and really get the benefits of all this technology.
Yep. Thank you for sharing those. And again, about building intentionality. Until this is formally built into our processes, and it natively attaches to different widgets and spaces and things, we need to be intentional about knowing, like what I'm doing right now, having TritonGPT up and open, or having my virtual background, because we hope that eventually it'll just be second nature. Of course, we go to TritonGPT in the same way that we go to Blink. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. When we're looking for different resources, we really hope that folks will start to build this intentionally into their processes. But for now, we might need to do something like schedule some time, or as a team decide that for the first 5 minutes, we're going to go in and we're going to try different prompts, or things like that. So just wanted to celebrate that. Resources. Okay, so we've put a lot of love and effort into collecting some resources that we think are helpful. If you go to tgpt.ucsd.edu, that's TritonGPT, tgpt.ucsd.edu, it'll take you to our main page here about TritonGPT. And then over here under resources and training is going to be our little collection, our hub of resources. So I'm going to go through these one by one. I'll tell you a little bit about each one and when you can use these. Some of these are available for staff only. Others are available for all audiences. So if you are UC San Diego staff or otherwise, some of these are actually available for you as well, because we want to share as much as we can. So this first resource is a self-paced intro. So up here under AI Essentials, there's this Module 1 AI Foundation. So UC San Diego staff, we're encouraging you to use the one that goes to UC Learning. And if you are not UC San Diego staff, you can click this link and it'll take you into a different, sort of a different version of it, if you will. But this is really, it covers a little bit about the history of AI, some terminology, some resources, some example uses, those sorts of things. So this is something that if you are a self-paced learner, you want to visit some stuff sort of on your own time, know that that is available for you, whether you're a UC San Diego staff or otherwise. And then self-paced, there's a resource here, Module 2 is specific to TritonGPT. So if all of this stuff was great, but it was too quick, or if you want to go into sort of a classroom module setting, know that this particular module, Module 2, takes you through each assistant, talks about which one does what. It even gives you some example prompts that you can try in the tool, so you're more than welcome to check that out. If you're a UC San Diego staff, that is something that is unique to us, because of course the tool is only rolled out right now to our staff. But if you want more information, shoot us an email. There is under resources down here, there's a set of videos and other resources. And one of those is something called Everyday AI. Now, what that is a collection of videos. Now, the first few are table setting. It's about prompting and what is TritonGPT. But from videos 4 onward, all of those are just a little 3-minute video where somebody goes in and tries a prompt. It's myself, and right now Stephen Savini, and then Roel Tibosh, also one of our team members. We're also looking for different use cases. So if you have a really great example use of TritonGPT and you want to get it out there, we would love to hear about those. So send them our way. Use the little share link button, which we'll show you in a second. If you haven't seen that before, it's pretty nifty. Share your prompts with us, because we would love to see additional ideas of mini YouTube example videos here from the community. And then there's micro learning. So of course there's a user interface guide. So if you want to know what's all the specific buttons do and that sort of thing, this one here is a little standalone resource that'll show you, and these are both available for all audiences. That START acronym that I shared earlier about prompting, that's also here under prompting best practices for videos and other resources. So know that these are available for all folks as well. And then of course, ask around. We really want you to share your learnings, but to also seek information. Now you can ask AI anytime. You can go into TritonGPT and you can say, I'm a project manager. Here's some of the things that I do. How can I possibly use this in my role? that's something that you could do, right? You can go to AI, you can say, what information do I need to know about TritonGPT in this context, or how can I use it in that context, or give me examples of prompts that I can use. You can go into the tool and you can ask it things about TritonGPT if you wanted to, right? But we also want to give you an opportunity if you wanted to ask a human. So one of the limitations of humans is that we're not available 24/7. So we're going to have a series called Ask a Human. Sort of think of it as office hours, if you will, a drop-in time where you could talk to people. I was going to say ask an expert, but one thing I really wanted to drive home here is that anyone who tells you they're an expert in AI, yeah, you take that with a grain of salt, because we're all still super learning on this journey. We're all still figuring out how to use it. We're all still figuring out what it does and what prompts work better. And there's a whole lot that's changing every single day. So ask an expert didn't feel honest, especially, you know, since if you go to the Ask a Human, you'll get a human. Myself, not necessarily an expert. Myself or others will be there. Hopefully we'll have some ITS allies and other OSI folks. And we're also trying to build a little bit of a community. So that'll be a time for drop-in conversations and maybe just example prompts that you can try out. All right, we mentioned sharing growth, and I showed the Idea Wave campaign. Know that that's there. One thing that we want you to do is use that as a space to share your prompts. If you had a successful prompt, for example, in the tool, know that it saves your, at least for yourself, you have visibility to these, other folks do not, but it saves your previous prompts in here, and you can like folder them and collect them and retitle them. But one thing you can also do is you can create a little share link, and you can copy that share link, and then you can send that to your coworkers. So if you find a really good use, you can share it and then bookmark it for yourself for later, or you can collect it a certain way within the tool, or feel free to share that and then put that into the Idea Wave campaign, or to email it to us so that we can add it to our series of Everyday IAI. So these are a couple ways that we want to keep the conversation going and find new use cases and find new ways that are hopefully going to be beneficial for folks all over. Whew. All right, what is next? So after today, there's going to be another few set of webinars. The very next one is going to be October 30th. And the registration link for that is posted. It is going to be available for all. So we're not going to do what we did here, where if you're used to San Diego, you register. And if you're not used to San Diego, you're watching live stream. Everyone will be able to register for this one. It's going to be a focus on how AI might impact or change or affect otherwise our education, so our learning. We're going to focus on how we deliver staff resources, so staff learning, sort of narrowing the focus a little bit. We're going to look at things like maybe KBA generation, video generation, how do you create training plans and that sort of thing. So it's going to be hopefully a really good spirited discussion with some folks in this space. The subsequent one's going to be, as I mentioned, in December or January. The date is still yet to be determined, but that's going to be sort of a look behind the curtain, under the hood, if you will, at the hardware, the software, even the change management structure. So as I mentioned, the AI and admin work group and others will have an opportunity to share what are the things that we're doing at UC San Diego to not only build the physical tools that are needed to make this happen, but the cultural structures that are making this all something that we can leverage. And we have additional topics, and those are going to be posted as well. If you're interested, all of that's going to be posted again in our same little resource hub here down at the bottom under webinars. If you want to share this recording with other people, please feel free to share the same page with everyone. The registration links are going to be here, and then once the sessions are done, the recording links will be there. We will also post the slide decks. So if anyone had that question in the chat, yes, the slide decks will be available. One thing that we are really interested in is how are folks using the tool? And so we prepared a survey. The QR code is here. We're also going to send a follow-up email with the direct URL. But if you have some time, hopefully now, scan that QR code and give us your thoughts. These questions are things like, how often do you use AI tools? How familiar are you with TritonGPT? What ideas maybe do you have on how we can improve some of the interactions and that sort of thing? Yes, Brett has put in the chat, if you have any additional questions, please do. We're going to have a little moment of Q&A here at the end as well. And then,
sorry,
please.
Tony, I do want to add for the survey. I know some of you may be, completely new to TritonGPT and AI, and this might be your first exposure. We'd still love for you to fill out the survey. We're not just looking for AI pros. We want to know if there are barriers to entry for people using AI, not just at UC San Diego, but in the real world. We want to be able to identify those barriers, and we want to, help figure out ways to actually overcome them as an institution. So please don't feel like you need to be some sort of, again, no AI experts here, but don't feel like you need to be some sort of AI power user or super user to fill out the survey. We want to get as many diverse viewpoints as possible. Back to you, Tony.
No worries, thank you. And then one more thing that we're starting to develop is a community of practice. So we're not sure what to call it yet. We're not sure what it's going to look like. We don't even really know what the charge is going to be, but we know there's a lot of people out there who are excited about AI, about TritonGPT. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to send out in the link, a link in the email that we send out after this. We're going to send a link to a form that asks if you are interested in maybe getting in on the ground floor and sort of defining what kinds of things we can do in the campus to drive adoption. Similarly, we're not necessarily looking for experts, right? We're not looking for folks who feel like they are experts are absolutely welcome, but we're looking for folks of all levels. We're looking for folks of all levels of exposure to AI, of all levels of comfort with AI, because really the goal is going to be how can we as a community lift each other up? So how can we as a community take advantage of this as an opportunity and a new time where we can start to really make the most of all the things that are going on. So look for information on that as well. All right, let's see how we're doing. Now is the time. Are there any questions that arose in the chat that we'd like to speak to live? Are there any additional questions folks want to put in the Q&A box? While we're getting those, I want to say fun fact, nearly all the images you saw, if it was not a screenshot, it was AI generated.
Including the one of Tony going like this.
Well, not that one.
AI.
Yeah, no, that's, how could you make an image that beautiful? Of course. So are there any questions that rose in the chat that we want to speak to live?
Yeah, Tony, there was a question that came in about incorporating TritonGPT as either a standalone app or into the UCSD app. Yeah, there's definitely on our roadmap to incorporate it into the UCSD app. Right now, if you do access it on your mobile device, it is responsive, so it should look fine and work fine in your mobile browser. But yes, we definitely have ideas for incorporating it into the UCSD app.
And I just wanted to reiterate, I saw a couple of times there were questions kind of about security and what we should put in and who can see the data. Just wanted to reiterate that very few individuals at UCSD can actually see what people are putting in. And I think Brent might be one of a handful that can see it. And again, I know with a lot of the other AI models on the market, for example, like ChatGPT, OpenAI, which is the company that runs ChatGPT, they actually use your prompts and the responses and like your thumbs up and thumbs down to like automatically train the model to be better. We don't do any of that here because we're really high on data security. That's why we've created this tool. That's why we've created TritonGPT, and that's the advantage that it gives us over tools like ChatGPT. But I would again make sure, like any other thing on the internet, don't put any really private information. We don't want to see any credit card numbers or social security numbers in there, and really make it as anonymous as possible when you're prompting it. And then we had another question about this wasn't actually sent into the Q&A, but there was a question about AI pulling financial data from our systems. So kind of a natural. Not natural, but a technology that we're still working on a proof of concept for is something that could, look into the financial systems and pull data out. So, for example, you could ask something like in the TritonGPT, what's the balance on project 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? And hopefully in the future, we could actually have something that would go into the financial activity hub, bring that data back, and then display it in a way that you could understand or that you could share with whoever needs to share it with. So that's a very vague sneak peek into some of the future technologies that we're developing. But because we're kind of doing TritonGPT ourselves and we're really leading the charge here, we're able to do really exciting things specifically to solve UC San Diego processes that may take a long time.
There's a question in the chat of when you share an example or template that you created in TritonGPT, do you get to specify who you want to receive that info? Yeah, it's a share link. So it's whoever you share the link with. It's you give them, you email it to them or put them in the chat or Teams message or something, and they can see it. And I guess by proxy, if they forward it to someone else, that sort of thing. But it's just a shareable link. I think they do need to be UC San Diego though. They do need to have access to the tool because it'll ask them for an SSO and that sort of thing. So I think
Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to share it with your aunt in Alaska, that sort of thing.
correct. Yes. Yeah, Tony, a question often comes up too in terms of access. So, we've deployed TritonGPT to about 37,000 campus and health sciences employees. So if you're part of the medical center, you're not going to have access. A lot of that just is around, data security and the fact that really the UC San Diego assistant wouldn't be applicable to most of the health employees because they use separate processes and procedures and systems to kind of get answers to those questions. So yeah, medical center employees do not have access to TritonGPT, but campus and health sciences employees do, and also student employees also have access. I
Awesome.
did see a question about if there isn't a student employee that doesn't have access. Yeah, contact the service desk and they'll route us a ticket and we'll make sure that they get in. There's a question in here about expansion. I will say too that yes, we've been approached by many institutions and several in particular, in which we've determined whether or not we might be able to make this available, to other institutions as software as a service. And so we did sign 2 contracts recently, one with UC Berkeley and one with San Diego State. We'll be hosting kind of a version of TritonGPT on their behalf.
I see somebody in the chat says that the links cannot be copied and pasted. What I'm going to do is we're going to send everyone an email after the session that has the links in there as well. So I apologize that the links cannot be copied, at least not as they are at the moment.
Carol asked a question in the chat: if AI is used in creation of a document or an image, are we obligated to identify that AI was used? I don't think there are any laws that state, yet that state that you have to do that. Probably best practice, just to let everyone know what was generated by AI. Me personally, I don't see any kind of issue, or I don't think less of any kind of work that was generated by AI. And also it's, super helpful for, spreading the word about TritonGPT and these other technologies and what they can do. I mean, like, hey, look what I've made using TritonGPT, or look what I made using, ChatGPT or whatever, spreading, integrating into our culture by kind of pointing out where it was used is super helpful. For example, Tony put it in the webinar deck that all of the images, most of the images were AI generated. That's something that we have to be careful for as well, because these images look really real. Like I thought, like the first time I thought this was actually like a real image, but it's also really nice just so that people know what's real and what's AI generated, because that line can get a little thin. Brett, you want to answer the next question?
Yeah, if Tony, you're sharing. So kind of how Tony was navigating through the different AI assistants. Fund Manager Coach is one of the assistants that you can select. So yeah, it's in that little drop down.
Yeah, so one thing that you might need to do when you go to the assistants is you might need to just scroll down a little bit, depending on how you're zoomed in or out. I've noticed that sometimes I need to do that, but there's a little bit of a scroll bar here, and Fund Manager Coach is one of the ones that should be available if you have access to the tool. All right, it looks like we are all good. We will remain here, as we say, with our ears on if anyone has any questions. I'm going to stop recording now. So if you're watching the recording, thank you. Otherwise, have a great day.